Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Words of Wisdom. Thank you so much for being here. This is for my divine feminines. When the divine feminine is mishandled, she becomes untouchable. The divine feminine is not fragile. She is not simply gentle, agreeable, or endlessly accommodating. She is life itself in motion, creation and destruction braided together, intuition sharpened into knowing, softness that can turn into boundaries so strong it becomes immovable. And when she is misunderstood, when she is dismissed, controlled, manipulated, or taken for granted, something shifts. Not in a loud, chaotic way at first, but in a way that changes everything underneath the surface. Because the divine feminine, when mishandled, doesn't break in the way people expect. She recalibrates. She withdraws her warmth from what no longer deserves it. She stops pouring into what refuses to grow. And what many fail to realize is this: her withdrawal is not emptiness. It is consequence. There is a common misunderstanding that the divine feminine is here to endlessly give, nurture without limits, forgive without reflection, stay soft no matter what is done to her. But that version is not divine femininity. That is depletion dressed up as virtue. The true divine feminine is deeply attuned to balance. She feels absolutely everything: energy, intention, honesty, deception, alignment, and misalignment. She doesn't just hear what is said. She senses what is meant. And that level of perception means she cannot be fooled for long. At first, she may try to understand. She may give grace where others would walk away. She may soften where others would harden. Because she sees potential, not just behavior. She sees who someone could be, not just who they are in their lowest moments. But here's where the danger begins. Not for her, but for those who mishandled her. Because grace is not ignorance, patience is not blindness, and softness is not surrender. When the divine feminine realizes she is being taken for granted, when her kindness is treated as obligation, when her boundaries are tested repeatedly, when her emotional depth is met with emotional irresponsibility, she does not explode first. She evolves. She becomes quieter, more observant, less accessible. And in that silence, something powerful happens. The dynamic changes. People who were once nourished by her presence begin to feel the absence of it long before she physically leaves. Because she was not just participating in the relationship, or the connection, or the environment. She was sustaining it, emotionally, energetically, and intuitively. And when that support is no longer freely given, reality becomes very clear, very quickly. This is where people often misunderstand her transformation. They think she has become cold, but she hasn't become cold. She has become accurate. She no longer compensates for imbalance. She no longer fills in emotional gaps that others refuse to acknowledge. She no longer softens truth just to make it easier for someone else to digest. And for those who relied on her softness to avoid accountability, this shift feels like punishment. But it's not punishment. It is clarity returning to its rightful place. The divine feminine, when mishandled, does something even more profound than withdrawal. She mirrors. She reflects energy back exactly as it is given. No enhancement, no cushioning, no emotional translation. Just truth unfiltered. And that reflection can be deeply uncomfortable for those who are not used to being seen without distortion. Because many people don't realize they've been receiving grace until it stops being extended. So, there is also another layer to her, so-called danger. It's not aggression, it is discernment. Once she learns your patterns, she doesn't unsee them. Once she recognizes inconsistency, she no longer confuses potential with reality. Once she experiences betrayal of her trust, she doesn't forget it just because time has passed or apologies have been spoken. She listens to energy more than words, and energy does not lie. So when mishandled repeatedly, she stops over-explaining herself. She stops trying to be understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding her. And this is where many realize too late that she was never the problem. She was the mirror. The divine feminine who is honored becomes expansive. She becomes magnetic, creative, deeply nurturing in a way that strengthens everything around her. She inspires growth without force. She brings emotional intelligence into spaces that lacked it. She elevates environments simply by being herself fully. But a divine feminine who is consistently mishandled becomes something else entirely. Not destructive, not vengeful, but unavailable. Not because she cannot give, but because she no longer gives where it is not respected. And that absence is often felt more intensely than any confrontation. Because confrontation can be argued with. Silence cannot. Distance cannot. Energetic withdrawal cannot. There is also a deeper truth here that is often avoided because it challenges comfort. The divine feminine is not here to be managed. She is not here to be controlled, shaped, or contained. She is here to move with truth. And anything that attempts to suppress that truth will eventually experience resistance, not from her ego, but from her essence, because she does not abandon herself to maintain access to others. She may bend, she may stretch, she may endure far more most than others understand, but there is always a point where she returns to herself, and that return is final. What makes her dangerous then is not that she harms others. It is that she stops participating in her own diminishment. She stops explaining her worth. She stops performing emotional labor for people who refuse to meet her halfway. She stops confusing loyalty with self-abandonment. And when she does, illusions collapse. People are forced to meet her as she actually is, not as they benefited from her being. Some will call this change sudden, but it was never sudden. It was a slow accumulation of ignored boundaries, unacknowledged effort, unreciprocated care, and unspoken disappointment. Until one day, the balance tips, and she simply returns to herself. No announcement, no dramatic exit, just a quiet reclaiming of energy. And that is where her true power lies. Not in destruction, not in revenge, but in the ability to no longer be misused. Because the divine feminine, when fully embodied, does not need to prove anything. She does not chase understanding. She does not force reciprocity. She does not beg for recognition. She simply aligns with what aligns with her and releases what does not. So if there is anything to understand about her so-called danger, it is this. She is not dangerous when she is loved correctly. She is not dangerous when she is respected fully. She is not dangerous when she is met with honesty, consistency, and care. But she comes untouchable when she is mishandled. Not because she turns into something harmful, but because she stops allowing access to what once took her for granted. And for those who only ever valued her presence while ignoring her essence, that shift can feel like loss. But for her, it is not loss at all. It is return. Return to balance. Return to truth. Return to self. And once a divine feminine has returned to herself fully, she does not need to be understood to remain whole. She simply continues forward, clear, grounded, and no longer available for anything that requires her to abandon herself in order to belong. Okay, guys, I have got to run. I hope this touched you. If this message spoke to something deep inside of you, if it put words to what you've been feeling but couldn't quite explain, then this is exactly why this space exists. This isn't just content. It's clarity, it's alignment, it's truth that helps you come back to yourself. So please don't just scroll past it. Like this video to anchor the message. Share it with someone who needs this awakening just as much as you did. And subscribe to Words of Wisdom if you're ready to keep growing, keep evolving, and keep stepping into your highest, most aligned self. Because the more you surround yourself with truth, the harder it becomes to settle for anything less. I love you, I love you, I love you. God bless.